read books, a larger group of people. They kept growing for several years. Anyway, it was a good experience. They had an article in the newspaper about him, telling about his finding this book in Chicago. And my mother was interested in that, so we went down to see what he has to say. And he'd made up his mind that was what he was going to stay interested in. So a lot of the group went along with him, and then some of them, if they weren't interested, they went on and did other things.
Charlene, what was his name?
B.M. Salyer.
Okay, yeah.
There's obituaries over there too.
Yeah.
Yes, he died at 95. Doug and I went to the service.
He also was Charlene and I pastor when we got married.
Yeah, he married us.
Is that right?
His parents' home.
Dorothy Faye's cousin too, right?
He's a cousin, Dorothy Faye. I
The
guess he just
newspaper
told
article.
that story. He mostly was interested in part 4. That's one reason he didn't stay with the group, because he didn't really want to move on into the deep study. But he had apparently read the whole book, because he said he'd signed in as a founder, and they had to have read the book. 10 people had to have read the whole book in order to form a society. So.
Then he brought several of them back from Chicago, a business trip, wasn't it?
Must have, because my parents bought one that day. They felt like they were really scratching together all their money to buy that book.
Didn't he put an ad in?
All about him.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't actually an ad, which is kind of interesting that he could get an article
Well, he
about
must
his
have been.
experience.
Did he have a church at that time?
Yes, he had a church of Spirit of the Mind or something like that.
But the article was
But
about
they
the
met at
Urantia
the
Book.
YWCA. He just rented a space there. And they had a large group. That I never heard his talk, because by the time we were involved, and he wasn't teaching that anymore. And my dad would provide some of the materials for the church, and it actually never belonged to the society. It belonged to Wilma McManus and her partner. His last name was Baker. So when people decided they didn't want a church, then it was set up just really like one. It was sold to a religious group to use as a church. We had pews and songbooks and everything. But the group wanted to move on. They wanted to do more of the deep studies, and and we were welcomed by the Chicago organization. They came down to the charter group did. John Hale's mother was one of the members of that. Came down to welcome us, and anyway, they just didn't want to have that kind of activities.
And then weren't we infused with Bill Sadler's frequent visits?
Yeah, Bill
right?
Sadler came after that, and he was a businessman, and he would just put Oklahoma on his agenda when he was going on a business trip. So we were very fortunate to have him. And I wasn't so much a part of that, but the people who were involved in it really made a point to get him here. You know, made him feel really comfortable, and he just...
Late 50s. And she was going to this class, book class, with her folks. And I didn't know what it was, but it's in 58, 59. And I didn't get involved in it until after I got out of the Army. And I got back with her. She kept going to classes. So we lived in El Paso, but when we moved back, she started attending class again. So I went with her a few times, and that's how I got involved. And it's in 1963. I joined the society. Clyde Goodland was membership committee at that time. And see who I can remember. A few that was on during the same time. Waldine Stump was one. I was thinking of another one now. I forgot who it was. I had to look at the book. I haven't looked at the book in a long time. Anyway, that was in 1963.
We happened to both have a baby the same day, the same year, and so my husband decided to go look him up. So we went over and they got acquainted and they became good friends, and they invited us out, he invited us out to their house, and so we went out to their house, and we just became really, really close friends. And on Sunday we'd go out, we'd have brunch maybe and play some cards or something, and then they'd say, well, we're gonna have a little class here, and we'd go home. And that happened for 3 or 4 times, and so my husband started talking to him, said, what's that class about and stuff? So he started telling him about the Urantia Book. And so my husband told me about it. I said, well, okay. So we decided we'd stay, see what it was about. And we were both sort of interested. But anybody familiar with the book knows even accomplished readers have difficulty understanding the Urantia Book. And my husband was not an accomplished reader. And he decided he wasn't interested. It was just too hard. Anyway, I just became fully infatuated with it at the time. So I started going to the Tuesday night study group and the Sunday night study group at Berkeley's. Tuesday night was at Helen and Van's house, Charlie's parents. And they said, well, you can become a member if you'd like to. This was in 1976. So I thought, yeah, I think I will. I'd read enough in the book. Didn't tell you to do anything weird. Didn't have any strange rituals. Didn't tell you to ever be mean to anybody or, be harmful to anybody. I thought, and it answered just an awful lot of my questions. And I thought, I think I'll join this group. And at the 2 study groups that I went to, there were people that had been going for years, and they were very knowledgeable. And if I had a question, they could answer it. And we had Frankie Goodman and her husband Clyde Goodman, and we had Babe, and we had Faye, and besides Helen and Ben's knowledge and Charlene's knowledge, I mean, I was just this sponge absorbing all this information. But everyone was nice, everyone was welcoming, and nobody pushed, and they weren't condescending. That's a dumb question. They were just really nice, and I thought, this just suits me. This is where I want to be. And on Sunday night at Berkeley's house, when we'd get together, that was a more diverse group, and there were several new people and people who had been there for years, but it was again the same atmosphere. Everyone was welcoming and answered the important questions and the silly questions, or what we felt was silly. Anyway, and I decided this was for me, and I've been with the group since 1976.
Organized and chartered, they came up spontaneously. In other words, they weren't a transplant from Chicago or originated from the Chicago area. So we were the very first spontaneous one to come up and to be recognized and chartered. And the second great thing we did is we were the first ones to have a conference, a Urantia conference that was not sponsored by the Chicago Fellowship. It was in 1976. It was an international conference, and we were the first ones to pull one together and to do it. So those were two famous things back in those early days.
Which is, for me, is not unusual. I mean, I read a lot. Read quite a bit still. But I really couldn't get anybody interested. I gave Vern Chapman one and a few people Urantia books. On Beth and I's first date, we went to this cafe in Edmond, the Wide Awake, at about 11 o'clock, and I started talking the Urantia book to her, and she said, I'm not interested in that crap. Or something similar. And so I thought, well, I'm interested in you, so I'll shut up. You know, I worked my way through college, so it took 11 years, and in 1979 I graduated from college, and Beth decided she'd get me a present that would really be a good present, because in the second year after I had the Urantia book, I found the Study of the Master Universe, the red book, at Taylor's newsstand downtown. I mean, I thought they were just printing those things up and planting them for me. I didn't know what was going on. So I never could find it. I gave a copy of that to somebody, and I never could find another copy of it. And so she went to a bookstore and had them look it up in books and print. They had a book about books and print. Beth did. So that got us on Berkeley Elliott's radar, because she sent off for it, and Berkeley was on the board that published it. It was Jill Sadler's book. And so in 1979, we went down to Eufaula to a Urantia conference. It was September, I think. And all the way down there, we said, oh, if they're weird or crazy, we can just turn around and come home. But we walked in, and Berkeley Elliott was out at the table. Everybody else was in the room, and she grilled me about how long you been reading it. Where'd you come from? But then we walked in, and Beth saw Tom Allen, and she saw
Tommy Clendon.
Tommy Clendon, all these people from Bartlesville, where she grew up, where she went to high school anyway. And that night we went to that weekend we went to Sunday class, and we just started coming. We just kind of incorporated in. So we joined in 1980, because members were always inducted in August. We missed the first one. She probably would have been ready, but and how many? There were 14. Mm-hmm. I mean, we assumed we'd have all these big numbers always. Everybody was young. And the 80s, if you looked at these history books, was the decade of the mustaches. I had a Fu Manchu, it was red. It was great fun. All the things that came out of this was lots of intellectual and spiritual growth. But man, we went to Paris and Italy, and through Switzerland to Italy to Israel, and then they went to Egypt in '85. You know, I've met people all over the world from this book, all over the United States. And mostly the 80s for us was like the lost decade, because we got married. We had a Urantia wedding at the Rose Garden. We had our reception at Sheldon and Charlene's. Yeah. Meredith Sprunger, a preacher, a United Methodist preacher from Indiana who's pretty famous, flew down and married us. It was a big deal. And then we started having babies, so I don't know what was on TV through the 80s. I don't know much of the music through the 80s. But I know all the Urantians through the 80s. It was a really special time.
Cool. That's really cool.
Shepherd Hall?
Was it on 36?
50th of May.
I think it was around 23rd.
Baldwin.
That's where Taft and Northwest
Baldwin.
Class.
Aladdin books?
Aladdin?
Might have been. That's where I found Urantia.
There was one that had, I think it was because I saw a Korean version of Urantia book. What was that?
I don't know. It's a friendly little place though, and quaint. Had a lot of strange books, and I was just perusing one day and picked up this huge book, looked through it, saw what it was about, kind of, and read a paragraph or two. I said, "Hey, that makes sense." Looked back 102 pages and thinking, that's how I always thought it should be. You know? I've read that book on my own for at least 10 years before any contact with anybody. And one day on the spur of the moment, I didn't live here, but I picked up Oklahoma City phone book. I looked through here. Wow, it's in here. So I called this number up. The person that answered answered the phone, wouldn't answer my questions.
Well.
Wouldn't tell me anything. Well, what do you think that means? Come back to, you need to come to our group.
And who was it that answered the phone?
So I said, no, I can't do that. I don't even live there. I'm 50 miles away. So I keep reading a few more years and moved to Oklahoma City. Went to work at this place. So it's pretty to have Adidas. It's an old shirt, but it's full of memories.
Casino Domino.
Had a great time at that place, and
We used to come there all the time.
had some people come in that
Went into labor there.
there was a. I remember that night. I was drawn to these people, but it was a very busy place, and they were always there on a Saturday night. Too much to do, couldn't be. And saw them over and over and over, Saturday nights. And as a management one, for security reasons, I walked the parking lot every now and then. Saw this red Jaguar with the steering wheel on the wrong side.
I knew it.
It says Urantia. I go, ding! I don't know whose car that is. I walked right to their table, said, pleased to meet you. What's your name? And been going since 1990. And the little lady wouldn't answer my questions, Berkeley. It's my 27th anniversary. I'm sure glad to see a bunch of people and a lot of the Wednesday nighters that I've never met.
Cool.
Gene Barnes.
Truck driver, and I was moving from Oklahoma, from Chandler area to Enid, and I run into Jody. Jody and I used to be teenage sweethearts, but we grew up and went our different ways. And I was looking for a place up north to live, and he says, well, come and stay at my place because I'm working. And I didn't get home but once a month. And he had this book on his coffee table. And I saw that thing and I thought, oh Lord, doing it to me again. Because I grew up the old Native American way. I was not brought up in organized religion. I was brought up that everybody is connected. And everybody that's connected is connected to Mother Earth and the universe and everything in the universe. So I understood the Native American way, and a lot of other people didn't. And Jody got to talking to me about this, what do you call it, Urantia. That's how I pronounced it, Urantia Book.
It's pronounced Urantia.
And he said, honey, it's pronounced Urantia. I said, oh, okay, no wonder I was pronouncing it wrong. So he told me, he says, I tell you what, let's go to Oklahoma City. So I got to go to Oklahoma City for one meeting, one of the readings. And I got to meet Karen and Tom over there. And I'm sitting there listening to everybody reading this book, and I thought, this is awesome. Because I grew up, God brings you to people.
Yes.
And God brings you to books. Because if you are looking for something and you run across a book, there's a reason for you to have that book. And there's a reason for you to meet a person. Because you're going to learn something from that person that's going to impact you later. So he knew I was getting ready to leave out. I think I was going to Washington State. And I said, Jody, can we go back down to Oklahoma City and get me one of them books? He says, why? And I said, because I get these layovers. And I don't want to go in the darn truck stop and watch stupid TV. I don't like TV. And I said I can sit in my truck. I had a sleeper. I had a double drop flatbed. And I said, and I can sit in there and read all along. So I got to go down. He took me down there, and that's where I got to meet Berkeley again. I thought she was the coolest thing there was. And my book, and I remember it cost me $65, and I said that was the best book I ever bought. And I started reading it. When I shut down for the night, I could not go to sleep. I had to stay up 2 more hours and read that book. And then I got to reading it and calling him and telling him about it. And I said, that's what my grandma used to tell me about. I said, now I know what grandma was talking about because it's all in this book.
Wow.
That's how I ended up getting acquainted with the Urantia Book. Now we're married. We've been married for over 20-some years. So.
That's beautiful.
So I didn't discover it, I was introduced to it. But I remember I was getting really interested in my church. I had a very good pastor, her name was Stephanie. And I don't know, apparently I started talking about it a lot at home. And my parents were like, and I remember one story especially stuck with me was I can't remember his name now. The man by the hills that he went off away from the city.
Fortune.
No, not him. That's in the Bible and the Urantia Book. So in the Bible, there's this man that everybody's afraid of, and Jesus comes, and and the man he has legion in him, which is thousands of demons in him, and he casts the demons out into a herd of sheep, and the herd do what?
Herd of swine.
Herd of swine. Sorry, and they And that story stuck with me, and I tell them about it, and they're okay, yeah, well, there's other ways to tell that story too, So they showed me the story in the Urantia Book where it was a man with a mental disorder, not well understood at that time, and the people, of course, are going to tell the story a certain way, and that's why it ended up getting told the way that it did in the Bible. But the real story was it was Jesus who was not afraid to go and help a man who everybody else was afraid of. And that's a paraphrase of it, of course. But so it took me a year or two to really get interested, and then in 2008 I decided to join. And Waldine was still the new membership chair. Veldon, when did she become the membership? 63. So 2008, she's still bringing in new members. That's crazy. So yeah, been in there.
She gave you a book with your name on it.
Yep, she gave me a book with my name on it.
14?
2014?
Yeah, 14.
So you're of this decade.
I am in this decade.
So smart.
Along with these three and this guy right here.
Yep.
Rob, actually.
This guy right here. I mean, this guy right here. But,
No hitting.
see, I joined on the prospect of free food. So, it's like the very first meeting that I ever went to, he's like, yeah, man, we've already did it before. I'm like, all right, I'm down.
Yep.
And that's what we do. We had dinner before. I think we actually ate Abel's, and I hated every minute of it for some reason. I did not like it then. I now love Abel's. It's really good, but I was super picky at that time. And went to the first meeting. It was all right. Went to a few more. It was all right. Then I started being a little skimpy and stuff on it. And then I got into college a little more. Went to a lot more lectures and stuff. Got appreciation for education and stuff. And started going a lot more. And when I lived with him and stuff, he would tell me all this stuff about it all the time. And we try to get other people to go. We try to get our friends to go and stuff. And Some can, some didn't. So one guy still thinks it's about a tree. I don't know why.
Tree, ranch tree, ranch tree.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a tree on the cover.
Ranching.
Yeah, like he just thinks we go worship a tree or something. I don't know. So so eventually I got serious about it. I mean, I still haven't read the book all the way through. I've read bits and pieces of it, but time is not my friend right now. I don't have a lot of it, especially then. So I was full time and working full time. So excuse me. But yeah, I joined in 2014. We at Jesus' birthday, I think August. So yeah, and then I went regularly to the Wednesday meetings. I showed up a couple times to Sunday night meetings. I try to go every single Sunday brunch that they have once a month.
Because there's food.
Probably so initially, I'm not gonna lie. Anytime there's a prospect of free
Hey, that's
food,
why I go.
Why do you think I'm here today? I mean, come on, Ted's. It's my favorite restaurant. I'm kidding.
It's all about the food.
I went to a couple of Red Book meetings. Those were really hard. Never went again because I was not ready. And then he said there a leadership brief. I can't remember what it's called. But he's up in a class. We did that a few times. So it's been a pretty good experience overall. It's only 3 years in. I don't have the 30 years, 20 years, or even longer than that for some of you guys. So
We all started out new.
yeah, so 3 years in. So still
Between the two. That helped out.
yeah, come to our Wednesday night meetings. We got plenty of discussion on that.
Did Alan have anything to add?
Well, I was telling Nancy here, many years ago I was with Husky Oil and I was doing a change. I was up in Cody, Wyoming. And I went to visit some friends in Independence, Kansas, some friends of my parents. And I was just kind of at a crossroads in my life. And Trudy Zimmerman, they were publishers there, had a publishing company, and she said, I want to take you to visit a friend of mine that I go to for counseling. So I went with her, and she took me into this woman's home, and the woman, the minute I saw her, I could see the intelligence in her face. There was a wisdom. There was a real depth that I saw there. She wanted to know a little bit about my background. I was involved in oil at that time. She said, well, I should probably stay in that business. And, but she said there are 2 books that I'd like to recommend you read. One is called Table in the Wilderness, and the other one is the Urantia. And I said, okay, fine. And later I went on out to Los Angeles. And I found Table in the Wilderness, and I read the book, and it was a nice book, spiritual book. And I came across the Urantia in a bookstore. This was a couple of years later. And I started thumbing through it, and I said, what is this? First pages and everything. No one had told me anything about it except her introduction. And I said, I can't buy this. I don't know, this doesn't sound like it's even coming from the planet Earth. In that early part of it. So I forgot about it, and about 6 months or so later, I came across it again in the bookstore, and I still couldn't buy it. I looked at it again and wanted nothing to do with it. Well, I met Rosemary, and we got married, moved to Santa Fe, and then later we came to Oklahoma City, and I had a note from an old girlfriend of mine, and she said, I'd like to give you a birthday present. It's too expensive for me to buy it for you, but it's called the Urantia Book. And you need to read this. That's my present to you. So, after you get hit over the head enough times, you get the idea. And I went down to Shepherd Mall and I bought one. And I began to read it, and I got pretty captivated by it after that. And I was reading it for a while before I realized there was a group here in Oklahoma City, and I think I discovered the phone book by accident or something. And I was going to the early meetings with your parents in the Belle Isle area, you know. They were there, and then I had to go out on the road in the oil business, and I couldn't go to the meetings anymore, and I got busy and buying up oil and gas leases and so forth. So, but I still have it, and still reading it. I really don't have, still running a couple of businesses, and I don't have time to do all the meetings. But anyway, it's been very helpful to me, and gotten a great deal out of it.
We know this weekly thing. One of the things I really enjoyed about the group was I was new and I wasn't really convinced, and nobody bugged me. Nobody said, "Hey, do you want to say something to the group?" There's words in the background. And I hope we can, when I got first involved, if I asked a question, it was just answered and that was it. Nowadays, we all love the book so much that we just want to just fire hose, give new people all this information that's too much. It was nice to just come into the book on my own. The group did not bug me about reading the book. And we need to remember that these days. Everybody, including me, we all do that. But what I really wanted to say was that Michael and I we decided to become members in 1980, and at that time, there were a bunch of old people in the group. These old people, like, unless Charlene was old.
She's still with us, but she's done now.
Berkeley and Helen, Babe, Van, and, you know, we were hanging out with old people. But, and
Now who's old?
yeah, now yeah, that's us now. Anyway, they all said, "Oh, we're so happy to have all of these young people here in this group. It's been so long and we haven't had any young people." And we're going, "Huh?" Okay, I guess. Anyway, yeah, there was an unusual bunch of people our age that got involved in the group at that time, like Tom and Karen, you know, and across the United States. But anyway, so in the early 80s, there was this ripple in the group nationally. The cave event, Vernon Grimsley out in California, he started hearing voices, and the group nationally was divided. There were those people who believed Vern, and I think there was a day when the world was going to end. And here in Oklahoma City, I was brand new, and I was going, "Oh my goodness, what is it true? Is it not true?" And some of our older members like Berkeley and Helen and Charlene took, no. That was it. And there was no more in Oklahoma City, to my knowledge, worrying about Vern Grimsley and some other people in the country bought a cave in Arkansas to go live in because the world was going to end. And we were able to maintain calmness here in Oklahoma City because
Sage wisdom.
We had, yes. Yeah. And so that was a very nice thing about our group. We had some wisdom. Yeah.
Eight groups before. California, Texas, Missouri, Arizona, and New England. And this group is by far the one that's felt most like a family. It's a great combination. There's frequent meetings, there's lots of food.
You feed them.
There's a lot of really knowledgeable readers. I mean, this group has everything, you know, and So I'm really glad to have found this group in 2016, and this is Oklahoma Urantia Book Society rock.
I'm so thankful that I joined this group because I was always spiritual seeker. Living in Russia, also when I was 33, I joined all these parapsychology groups, and we meditated on Gorbachev and that Berlin Wall will fall, and so we just wished him health and gathered regularly. And then, I was probably chosen by the God to come to America. It was a little adventure. And in 1992, so I immigrated to New Mexico. And I started teaching Russian and then special ed. And 2 years ago I retired and moved to, that was my second immigration, from New Mexico to Oklahoma City. because,
whole other country.
because my daughter married Mr. Muir, Don Muir's son. So that's why, who brought me here. And yes, I'm very thankful also that I feel like, yes, I'm in the right place and it's a beautiful family for me. And I started first learning Bible because we were all atheists in the former Soviet Union. And that was the first opportunity that I had time. After retirement, I joined the Church of Christ on Memorial Road, and it was last year, 2016. So I came from New Mexico 3 years ago, and several months ago I joined Urantia Group, and so I'm really very happy. Learning. It's very difficult, but my first kind of intention when I read that book, I thought, okay, I will improve my English because I will. I met so many Russians here, and I started speaking Russian here in Oklahoma, and I started forgetting English. I thought, oh, it will be so nice. I can pronounce it, improve my language. This was my first impression, and then. More and more, I started, understand so much, really.
Do you read the book in either language?
Yeah, now I found also on free, by the way, on my tablet. Mm-hmm. I found the free version in Russian, and I'm just reading both.
There's a conference
Yes,
in Russia.
yes.
God,
I'm
you
sure that in Russia they have these groups also.
Did you say there's a conference in Russia, Mark?
Yeah.
There will
be? There was one last year, and there's another one
last year. Where, in Moscow?
I'm not sure, but we have friends in New York, and she's a Russian Jew.
I think it was Estonia or Latvia.
Very interesting, yeah. But Estonia and Latvia is now different countries.
Yeah.
Very bad motorcycle wreck. Career kind of ended, and I decided to become a hippie. So I was hitchhiking between here and California, and about the fourth trip,
what year?
1973.
Okay.
I had heard about the Big Sur Mountains and always wanted to go there. And so on the trip, I was driving up the coast and picked up a girl hitchhiker in Santa Barbara. And she took me to the property where her boyfriend was living in a travel trailer helping develop the property. And there was another trailer on the property, and there was a girl there, and she had the Urantia Book. And so we got together and stayed together for about a year. She came back here to Oklahoma with me. And then I had a chance to be a motorcycle mechanic. And so I went to Chicago for about 4 months and found the headquarters, and actually bought my first book there at that headquarters in Chicago. But I still haven't read the whole book all the way through. I wanted to know that Jesus actually existed and who he was, but I only read up until he was about 28. And then I kept rereading the history of Urantia to find out why we're in such a mess. And then on another trip that I took, I ended up in Oregon, and through a chain of events, my book got left there. But somebody in Oregon has my original book. But then I didn't really read the book, but after that, but continued to travel around the country and had an incredible trip in '76 where I just went on faith, and it turned out really well. But then I found out you could download it to your phone, and so I started reading it again, and I wanted to know, what's the normal evolution of a plant? And I read that part and realized that we were so far away from that and going in the wrong direction. Really frustrated with it and everything. And through a chain of events, I came home to visit my mom, who was 94, and my sisters were getting ready to put her in a nursing home, which she didn't need to go to. And so I decided to stay. And being bored, I looked up the Urantia Society, and that's how I got in with the groups that are here. So I go to every one of them just so I can get out of the house for a while.
And food.
That's how I got to where I am.